Hey everyone, welcome back to this week's episode of Service Matters. I am your host, Riley Carroll. Once again, a jam packed show for you to talk about all things Service Matters. We got a fancy new sign here, a very cool professional looking setup. So, feeling good about that. Let's jump right in. So, SB 694, let's talk about it. Governor Newsom signed this bill on Tuesday. And essentially, what it does is it helps protect veterans from claim sharks. So, if you're a veteran or you know a veteran, you know that there is a process for filing claims for veterans benefits. And a lot of people go through VSOs, Veteran Services offices, through like your county. In California, there are several hundred offices throughout the state, but there are also private claim offices, right? And some of these can be predatory. Some of these can take advantage of veterans by charging them a lot of money to file these fairly simple claims that could be filed elsewhere. Now, there's sort of two sides to this. It did pass, and the governor did sign the bill. So, like, there is support for this, and I should say there is majority support on this. But there are some, especially veterans, who are not as excited about the signing of this bill. And their main reason is because they feel like two things. One, they feel like it's taking away options for veterans to file their claims. Someone likened it to getting rid of private attorneys, only having public defenders as your counsel. And so they feel like it takes away the option. If a veteran does want to pay extra money and have it done by a private company, they should be able to do that. And there is a multitude of reasons why somebody might want to go to a private company, but one of the main ones is to avoid a backlog or to avoid, just having it take a long time. Maybe if you pay someone, you have a more theoretically a more aggressive advocate on your side working to get you the most benefits that they can faster. And so that's sort of one of the downsides, I guess, or one of the opposition points to the signing of this bill. But I will say I was able to speak with the Veteran Services Officer for Placer County yesterday, who actually, coincidentally, was at a training conference with all the other Veteran Services officers in the state. And they watched the signing of SB 694 yesterday when Governor Newsom was signing it. They watched it live at this conference. And he said, on behalf of all of them, they're very excited about this. They do feel like this is the right thing to do. They feel like it's a step in the right direction, that it protects vulnerable veterans from being taken advantage of. So I want to go ahead and play you my interview with Steve Johnson here with Placer County, who was, again, generous enough to give me a couple minutes of his time, given the fact that he was at a training. He got out of a training, hopped on a Zoom, and then went back to his conference. But take a listen to what he had to say about what this means for veterans going forward. Governor Newsom signed SB 694 today, and I just, want to get your thoughts on it. What's your reaction?
Yeah, so actually it's great timing. I'm in the California Association of County Veteran Services Officers annual legislative conference right now. So we're out here at Fire Mountain Hard Rock and we're doing our annual training. And so my response is the same as the whole room as we watched it live, which is that it's a huge win for veterans and it's a great it affords great protection to our veterans in the state.
Can you give a little bit of context for people who may not be familiar at some of the claim sharks that this bill is now going after and is going to hopefully prevent veterans from being scammed when they're filing for claims? Can you just give a little bit of context for people as to why veterans are vulnerable to this or what that means?
Yeah, sure. So I think first, you got to kind of go back to the history of why this bill is even introduced and why it exists. And it's really because at some point in time, the teeth, if you will, of the federal law was kind of taken out. And so there's really no um, criminal consequences for these folks, these claim sharks, right? And so that's where the state stepped in, and we wanted to go ahead and protect our veterans because right now the federal government hasn't done that, and that's been going on for a long time. So this isn't necessarily real new or anything. But with that being said, yeah, so these folks, first of all, they charge for a myriad of claims. Some of those are like original claims,
Mhm.
and that is strictly forbidden to charge for original claims. The other thing is those are very easy claims generally. I mean, these are the claims that when you first get out of the service or you've never filed a claim, I mean, this is your first go at it. You probably have your best success rate often on your first claim. So for folks to be paying for that, for our veterans to be paying out of their pocket, that's kind of wild. And then when you start getting into appeals or advanced claims, obviously we're there to help. But there's 20,000 accredited agents across the nation that can help veterans. It could be attorneys, it could be other accredited agents, it could be us, it could be folks with the VFW, the American Legion, and so the possibilities are endless. So for them to have to go to a for-profit company, I don't think that's okay. So.
Yeah, totally. And you mentioned there's a lot of these qualified service providers who can help veterans with these claims, but of course, County Veteran Services is one of those. Is Placer County expecting, I don't know, like an increase in helping veterans with claims because of this? Hopefully, I guess, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think there could be an increase in claim activity. I think that is part of the reason why there's a delay written into this legislation, and so it won't take effect as far as like the punitive actions for these companies, I believe, until January of 2027. But when you really look at the overall work, you mentioned VSOs being being one of the options for veterans. In fact, I think probably the premier option for veterans across the country, but certainly in this state. We have about 449 members or 449 full-time employees across all of the Veteran Services offices in the state. But though that small amount of people, that's probably about as many employees as a couple of the bigger for-profit companies. And we filed 316,000 claims this past year and earned almost $700 million for veterans, just new compensation. So when you look at that, to absorb, so to answer your question, about 5,000 customers, I guess, for these folks, as they would call them, but 5,000 veterans are out there that are probably engaged with these companies in the state, or at least that's an estimate that they have thrown out there. And so if that's the number, not to be arrogant, but we kind of eat that for breakfast, right? 316,000 claims. So 5,000 claims. Yeah, we could see an uptick here or there, but I don't think it's enough to move the needle on us being able to do our job. And, to the point of we're out here training right now. So these are well-trained folks and our offices we're ready and we're standing ready to receive these folks.
Okay, so that was Steve Johnson, Veteran Services Officer for Placer County. And Placer County is a very veteran friendly, very veteran heavy county and a lot of support for vets. And as you heard, he thinks this is great. He thinks that this will mitigate people being taken advantage of. And also, as you heard, one of my main questions was, you know, like, are these people who would have otherwise gone to a private claim service, are they going to now come to the county and can the county absorb that increase? And as you heard, they're expecting some increases, but very mild, and everyone is able and willing and ready to help serve those veterans. And so another thing that he mentioned, which I thought was very interesting, is that this kind of goes back to you kind of got to go backwards when it comes to this bill, and you got to look at the legislation that took away the teeth with some of the legal implications of ripping these veterans off and what exactly constitutes illegal gouging of these veterans, or, what constitutes an unreasonable price to pay for these veteran services. So it's very interesting. I'm hoping that it helps our veterans. Obviously, here at Service Matters, we care about issues that affect veterans. And, hopefully this is something that is positive for them and makes their life easier because I think, you know, from what I have heard personally from many, many veterans over the years, talking to them, is that the benefits from the VA are good. They're good when you can get them and when they are utilized properly. And that can be difficult. And that's a whole other episode. I mean, we could talk for a long time about VA hospitals and VA benefits and kind of how hard you have to work to actually take advantage of some of those benefits. So, you know, all that is to say, this is a bill that Governor Newsom signed. He said wholeheartedly he believes that this is the right move. He's very proud to sign this bill. And it was also endorsed by Attorney General Rob Bonta. So there you go. That is it. Claim sharks are going bye bye. Oh, and by the way, I think Steve mentioned it, but kind of like the punitive measures for these claim sharks, it doesn't actually go into effect until January of 2027. So a year from now, a little less than a year from now. But anyways, that is the effect of that. So we're going to go ahead and hop into a break. And on the other side, we're going to speak with a reporter who did a really interesting piece this week on internet safety for children and crimes against children on the internet. Very interesting interview. You'll not want to miss it. We'll see you after the break. All right, welcome back. So, I promised you a great interview with a great reporter, and that is exactly what you're going to get. I sat down with Cedric Hood, who was able to interview a detective from the Internet Crimes Against Children unit with the Sacramento County Sheriff's Office yesterday. And they did a story because yesterday was National uh, Safer Internet Day. And, it's all the things that you would think would be encompassed in child safety online. And it was a really great interview and it was very illuminating. And I think that, and you'll hear me say it in the interview, but I think that a lot of parents, um, I think that we are getting more used to watching out for our children online as social media becomes more prevalent and all of that. But I do think that there's still a large swath of the population who parents are more worried about physical safety than internet safety. And for a lot of people, internet safety could be a much larger threat than physical safety. So let's go ahead and take a listen to this interview with Cedric. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Welcome back to Service Matters. We are joined by Cedric Hood. Cedric, thank you very much for talking with me again.
It's always a pleasure to be here with you, Riley.
You are always fun to have on. I just feel like you really explain things in a very normal way
Hmm.
and in a way that's easy for people to understand. So,
Yeah,
which is
thank appreciate that.
underrated. Yeah, it's a
Appreciate
very,
that.
very, very good skill.
Hmm.
So, let's talk about a story that you did this week.
Hmm.
Actually, it's an entire day
Hmm.
dedicated to internet safety,
Yes.
especially with specifically for children.
Hmm.
So you did a story yesterday. Just tell me a little bit about. Let's just start like high level. Just tell me a little bit about what this Safer Internet initiative is.
Yeah, well, yesterday was National Safer Internet Day, and it's a day dedicated to just making awareness, bringing awareness to parents and families and educators just about the what the risks that children face when they use these devices, tablets, iPads, cell phones, and whatnot. And there are a lot of bad people out there that target minors, and I was speaking with the team with Sac County Sheriff's Office. They are a part of the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force,
Mm-hmm.
and they do a lot of hard work, things that you would never imagine. And it was a tough story, but I got through it. I learned a lot, and going to be having some conversations with my nieces and nephews about how they're
Yes.
using their devices, and then also with their parents, just about things to look for on the phone, privacy settings, certain apps. You'd be
Yes.
surprised, Riley.
Okay, so it's so funny you say that. I would be surprised. My first question is, do you think people, general public, parents, would be surprised at how susceptible their kids actually are? I think a lot of parents think, oh, they're worried about their kid getting snatched walking home from school.
Hmm.
They're worried about bullying or something like that. But do you think parents would be surprised at how prevalent this actually is?
Yeah, and the I was speaking with, her name is Christy. She's one of the detectives, and she was telling me how she does these presentations. She goes
Mm,
to schools, she does parent meetings, and she's like, a lot of parents are walk out dumbfounded, like, what is going
yeah.
on? Like, I did not know this. And it's one of those things where, like, you give your child a phone, you're like,
Yes.
"This is for them to contact me,"
Yeah.
as a
For
parent.
safety.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, but obviously kids are kids, teenagers are
Yeah.
teenagers. They wanna be on Instagram,
Yep.
Facebook, they wanna
Yep.
Roblox, they wanna download all these apps, and a lot of the issues come with not so much the children, but the who has access to message.
Yes.
Send a friend request,
Yep.
send a DM, send a comment. That
Yes.
is the dangerous part because,
Yes.
it's the internet.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that a lot of parents probably aren't even aware. So I'm thinking of a couple different examples here. I think most parents are probably familiar with Facebook,
Hmm.
probably Instagram at this point too, the
Yes.
DM features. But I bet a lot of parents don't understand Roblox,
Hmm.
or Snapchat even, to
Hmm.
be able to find some of those messages. So, I mean, what are parents supposed to do? Like, what are the detectives saying parents should be doing in order to educate themselves about this?
So my takeaways, first I'll name the four big ones.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
mentioned a few. So for sure, Facebook,
Okay, yeah.
Instagram, Snapchat, and Roblox. And
So crazy.
that something new that they found out was Pinterest. You
No
can
way.
yeah, she was like shook. She's like, you can do things on Pinterest. They made a
Oh
couple
my
arrests from
gosh.
that.
Wow.
But what parents need to look at for is anytime you start a new account, I think that email address, that
Mm,
initial email address that, because remember when you ever like notice you have a list of emails, so and so sent you a message, you
yes.
sent so and so a message. Yeah, I think parents need to have access to that email account so
Yes.
they can see what your kids what comments they're receiving, what messages are going in and out. I
Yes.
think that's really important. Another thing is just I think just, random checkups on it
Yeah.
on, hey, like, let me get your phone. Oh, they go away to dinner, grab the phone, just take
Mhm.
a look,
Mhm.
But communication,
Mm.
Riley, that
Mm.
is the biggest one
Mhm.
overall.
Mhm.
Having that conversation with your child. And I'm
Mm.
not a parent, so
Right.
this is what I learned.
Yes.
Children should be able to go to you,
Yeah.
mom, dad, hey, this doesn't seem right. This random person messaged me asking for XYZ. And I think communication is probably the number one and the one
Yeah.
that I would want our viewers to know for sure.
Yeah. I want to ask you, you're not a parent, you mentioned. I'm not a parent either. So we haven't been in these situations, but I kind of just want you to like, you know, take your best guess at what you would do as a parent. Like, for example, my when I growing up, my mom took my phone every single night.
Hmm.
As a teenager, probably like definitely middle school, probably into high school a little bit too. She took it every night. She probably read stuff or not. Maybe she was just taking it. It was also part of just taking it so that I wasn't on it at
Hmm.
night, but she probably looked into it. I mean, how far would you go personally as far as, checking in on your kids' social medias, having the passwords? What would you personally do after hearing about this situation?
Well, shout out to your mom for doing that because that's a big one. That's a good one. Um, but see, it goes as if like, your mom took your cell phone,
Yeah.
but some teenage boys are on their gaming systems.
Right. Oh, that's a
You
whole
know what I
other
mean?
thing. Yes.
And what are you gonna do? Take the TV, take the
Right.
Xbox
Take the
out of the
Xbox, take the
take the
controllers. Yeah.
PC out of the
Yep.
room. It's like,
Yep.
and I mean, for me personally, I think from a very young age if I ever have kids, I will definitely communicate with them that, hey, dad's here.
Yep.
Always talk to me,
Yes.
whatever it is.
Yep.
No judgment. Like I'm here to
You'd rather
protect
know.
you. I'd
Yep.
rather you talk to me about it.
Yes.
Anything. Like,
Yes.
I think that's what I do. But I really like what your mom did. I think that's something that my mom didn't do and
Yeah.
probably should have done.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
um,
It's annoying at the time, but I totally get it now.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. So taking the phone away is a big one, but I think the random checkups, like, are important, at
Yes.
dinner. Hey, let me see your phone. Like,
Yes.
I think kids should be, and then that if you need that, wait, mom, wait, dad, wait. Oh,
Yep.
why are we waiting? What are
Yes.
you
Yes. Yes.
hiding?
Yes. Yeah. What are you trying to
That's an
delete? Yeah.
indicator, yes, you know what
Yep.
I mean? And, I just think I just probably do the random checkups. I'd for sure, "Hey, what apps are we downloading?"
Yeah.
I think you need to come to me before you d decide to download any apps.
Yes.
There
Yes.
are the
Yes.
parent locks you can put on, like, the iTunes or the
Yeah.
iCloud or the
Yep.
Apple Store. Definitely put those passwords on there, have access to the email, and then, "Hey, when you're 18, like, we can revisit this,
Yes.
Are you still
Yes.
living under my house?"
But if you're in my house, it's my
Yeah,
rules. That's how I was
exactly,
raised.
exactly,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think another thing too, and this is kind of getting into the more nitty gritty of it, and so it's a little upsetting to be honest. Some of
Mhm,
these weirdos, frankly, on the internet trying to target young children, but it's something that I've learned in other sort of similar stories is that it's not always like the 65-year-old weirdo that you need to
mhm,
be careful of. Sometimes the line is blurrier. Maybe it's a 23-year-old, maybe 25, a young adult, right?
mhm.
Where you don't necessarily have that obvious like creeper white van red flag,
Mhm.
but that is still very predatory behavior, right?
Right, 100%. Some of the arrests they made over the few years were people they never expect. These
Mm.
people were, coaches.
Oh, coach. That's another thing.
Hmm.
They put themselves in these places
Mhm.
I mean, it's why, unfortunately, we have that kind of bad reputation in the Catholic Church of priests
Mhm.
being predators when you put yourself in a position where you have access to children,
Right.
unmarried, all these things,
Mhm.
right? And so they oftentimes put themselves in these positions. I apologize for interrupting you.
Yeah, no,
Please,
no, no,
please
no.
go ahead.
You're right. You hit the hammer on the nail.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like those people you never expect, and they say they always make these arrests. And they one thing stood out to me that she told me was that they show up to the front door. Hey, ma'am, what's your name? Is your husband here? Oh
Oh,
no, he's out. Okay, well, we need to come in and we need to take his laptop. We need this. We need that. Oh, my husband would never do that.
right, right,
You
right,
don't
right.
know
You have
who.
the wrong guy.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like hey, the law enforcement's at their door. If they're telling you that,
There's a reason.
yeah, and they said like some of these people you would never even suspect. You would never
Yes,
suspect. And that is the scary part.
I
Like you
know.
said, it's not the person in the white van
Yeah.
hiding.
Yeah.
It's not the 65-year-old. It's literally the 20-year-old down the street. It's
Yes.
your Starbucks barista.
Yep.
It's the police officer. They've arrested
Yes.
some of their own, they told me. EMTs, people that are running for office. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
it's it's such a variety. And It's a big team that they have. I will say
Yes.
there are five task force throughout California. We have one of the largest in the country.
Yep.
Sacramento is the hub.
Yep.
So Sacramento County Sheriff's Office is the hub for this.
Wow.
So from Northern California up to the border of Oregon, all the way down to Stockton. And Riley, I just, like I said, it's so, I want disgusting.
Yeah,
These
it
people,
is.
it's
It is.
disgusting.
It is evil. And something this is sort of unrelated but kind of related, right?
Hmm.
Obviously right now one of the biggest stories nationally is the Epstein files.
Yes.
And some of the new releases of emails, we see really vile and disgusting things that these people are saying
Hmm.
about young women, some teenagers, 14, 15 years old, some a little bit older, but still in a very vulnerable position, 18 or
Right.
19 years old. And they were able to have access to these teens this was back in the 90s, the early 2000s when we didn't have this
Mm-hmm.
technology. And when you look at the level of crime that was able
Yes.
to be committed
Hmm.
without the use of some of these modern day conveniences, it's sort of like a juxtaposition, like a really glaringly obvious modern day example of that's what could happen back when you needed to find someone's cell phone number, look them up in the phone book, call them. Now people have so much more access to the children, and that is a very scary thing to think about.
I 100% agree. I've been keeping up. I watched both documentaries on Netflix. I thought
Yes,
they did a
me
great
too. Yeah,
job,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
outlining that. Filthy Rich,
Yes,
Ghislaine Maxwell, and Jeffrey Epstein.
yes.
But I couldn't imagine this was like early 2000s, late
Mm-hmm.
90s when he was doing all this, and knows beyond.
Right.
But I couldn't imagine what he could have got away with,
Yes,
had
yes,
technology been as advanced as it is today back then.
yes, yes.
But I think that, the with the cyber tip line, the national cyber tip line that they have, with all these agencies working so hard diligently,
Yeah,
keeping up with trends, they are on top of it,
yeah.
but it just never seems to stop. It's like a revolving door. They make one arrest today,
Mhm.
tomorrow's another arrest. The
Yeah.
next day they have to get another tip, and it just
Yes.
keeps going. And it's like, when will it stop?
When will it stop? And something I find interesting, I don't know if you ever have this thought. I'm sure you do. When I hear about some of these stories, right? We report on them in the news, right?
Hmm.
Like this person was
All the
arrested for
time.
this
Mhm.
internet crimes against children or whatever. You think, it's awful what they did. It's objectively horrible, it's evil, it's disgusting.
Mhm.
They're also stupid
Mm.
because you read the messages or you think, are you so dumb that you think that this 12, right? Like,
Yeah.
you read these conversations and you're like, did you think you were going to get away with this?
Mhm.
B, did you believe that this was real? Sometimes they have the sting operations, and I just feel like don't don't be a criminal,
Right.
A, but secondarily, don't be so stupid because the law enforcement will find you out. They are so much better trained, so much more well versed on this
Yeah.
than the average pedophile is. And so they will catch you.
Yeah. And Riley, something I did want to bring up was they're seeing a enormous amount of sextortion
Mm.
where
Oh.
these predators are reaching out to children, asking for pictures, and then in exchange, hey, give me money. And they're like,
Oh.
no, like, and then, hey, we're going to blast your pictures. We're going to send them to your friends and family
Mm.
and show them what you're doing. And some of these kids commit suicide because they get so overwhelmed and they
It's
get
terrible.
scared and
Makes
they don't know
sense.
what to
Yeah.
do. But sextortion is a big one. I'll give you the numbers in
Yeah.
Sac County. In 2024, the sheriff's office made 80 arrests connected to these cases, and in 2025, that number jumped to over 200. So
Wow.
it's
More than
ridiculous.
doubled.
Yes, more than
Oh
doubled.
my gosh.
Yeah, and it's quite frankly, and this we can go into this tunnel if you
Yeah,
want,
yeah.
this rabbit hole,
Right, right,
but
right.
legislation is what needs to happen. Is what they were
Interesting.
telling me is like they need stricter laws. Like the laws aren't really geared to protect children as much as you think. One of the laws, AB something,
Yeah.
passed a couple years ago where it helped protect AI generated child
Oh,
pornography.
yes.
And Sac County
Yes.
had one of the first arrests in the state. There was a
Yes.
cartoonist that created AI generated porn. I don't know if he was selling or trading or what it was
Yep.
going on, but that was a big step in the right
That's
direction.
good.
But it looks like there needs to be more. There needs to
Mm,
be more to keep these criminals in prison and away from children. And they can do the ankle monitor, the
yes.
probation, but
Yeah.
that what is that
Yeah.
really
What
doing?
is that really doing? That is such a good point. I think too, we're talking about the Sacramento County Sheriff's office who you
Yeah.
spoke to,
Yes.
and obviously Sheriff Jim Cooper, and
Yes.
Sheriff Cooper. I know Sheriff Cooper, and
Mhm.
one of the great things that I've talked about before on the show that I really love about him is he is so direct and clear about the root of the problem, which is
Yes.
legislation, which is
Mhm.
exactly what you're saying.
Yes.
And because he was formerly in the legislature and he
Mhm.
was formerly an assembly member, he really knows at, at what level things need to change in order for his deputies to be able to carry out crime and punishment the way that it should be carried out. And
Mhm.
so this is a really interesting one because it feels really obvious, right? It feels like to the average voter, I'm like, well, I assume that there are laws that protect children, right? But then
Right.
you start to read and
Mhm.
you get into the minutia of it and you realize that it's really hard for sometimes a DA or prosecutors to nab someone on these particular charges because there's so many different nuances
Mhm.
about what's admissible in court and what actually counts and what your intent and all these things. And so I think that the legislation is such a pardon me, it's such a huge part of it that people, especially the average just consumer of the daily news cycle,
Mhm.
doesn't think about.
Yeah, and you're right there, dead on. Like I think it's very important that when that legislation comes up,
Mm,
when you hear bills,
yeah.
the proposals, read them,
Yes.
and as a voter, like think about your children, think about your family, think
Yeah.
about your children's children, like
Yep.
what's really going to help and impact people. Because unfortunately, we live in a society world where people don't care until it affects them.
Yes.
And it shouldn't be that way. We should all be reading what's passing and what can help protect our families, especially our children, elderly, and pets. Those are the
Yes.
big three for me. But yeah, Riley, totally.
I think I just wanna touch on one more point if you don't mind. I kind of want you to talk about you mentioned a really sad statistic about this leading to suicide in
Hmm.
young teens when they feel like they don't have another option. And we often talk about children as being vulnerable, right? And they
Hmm.
are vulnerable in a lot of ways, but specifically the emotional, you remember when you're a teenager, you're emotional, things feel like the biggest deal in the world. And so it makes so much sense that they might make a mistake by sending a photo or something, right?
Hmm.
And then it feels insurmountable. It feels like they will never recover from that. They cannot go and tell their parent. And it's so gross because the perps know that. They know that these kids are in a vulnerable emotional state. They're teenagers, they're hormonal, and they know that they will make otherwise, you know, ill-informed decisions because of the hormonal changes just biologically that's going on at that time. And so I find that really it's really sad, but unfortunately it does make a lot of sense.
Yeah, 100%. They told me about a situation where a teenage athlete, I don't think it was here in SAC, but it was in the Bay Area. He was, sending this person money because said they
Mm,
were going to expose him and send
mm,
his photos. And it just got to the point where the predators kept asking for more. And he took his own life.
it's
And,
awful.
and again, like you said, this has to stop. And they're dealing with two things. They're dealing with actual like predator perverts that
Yes.
are doing this in their mom's basement
Yep.
and in their rooms.
Yep.
And they're also dealing with like a whole other continent of Africa and Asia of
Oh,
people over there that are just, that's
like
what they do all
scamming
day,
to get the
scamming.
money. Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, yes, yes. Pretending to be other people, all these things. So their jurisdiction can sometimes only,
Wow.
stay here. They can't go to
That's
Asia and make an
overwhelming.
arrest. It's so overwhelming. And it's lives that are lost all the time. It's unfortunate that these kids, but Riley, if I can say it again, if I can
Yeah.
say it a million times,
Yes.
communication,
Mm,
like have that conversation with your child, your teenager,
yep.
check in with them. Because some of the signs that they say, and this goes to any parent out there, this is the signs that they say that they normally see. I have it here. Usually you'll see that your child maybe staying in their bed, like
Mm,
they look a
yeah.
little depressed, they
Mm,
isolate themselves, they are no longer wanting to do things that they typically would do.
yes.
They stay very quiet. Things, it's kind of like you might think that they might, oh, I don't feel good, I'm gonna just go to my room.
Right.
Actually, no, go check. Like, be like, hey,
Yes.
is it a fever? Are
Yeah.
you mentally not okay? Like,
Yes.
let's talk about this.
Such good advice.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really something, and like you said, it's such a they have such a vast uh jurisdiction of
Hmm.
problems.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important for parents to kind of take on some of that, the onus to be put on the parents a little bit
Hmm.
to try and help mitigate, because law enforcement is fighting such an uphill battle
Yeah.
with this.
And
So,
and me personally, like, National Internet Safety Day, it
yeah.
should be Internet Safety Year. This is something that
Yes.
just doesn't stop yesterday on that
Yes.
day. This should be something that's talked about all the time, because children are innocent, innocent lives are being lost and taken advantage of, and there are a lot of bad people that need to be held accountable for their actions.
Absolutely. Cedric,
Mm,
thank you. Thank you so much. Honestly, as per usual, you were a delight and very, very informative. And I think it just really helps people kind of digest these concepts better, even than just hearing it on the news and in
mm,
small tidbits. It really helps kind of contextualize this. And I'm sure a lot of people listening are going to be, unfortunately, really surprised by some of the statistics that we were talking about here and just some of the topics in general.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
thank you so much, Cedric.
Glad to be here.
All right. And that was my interview with Cedric Hood. Very interesting. Cedric did a great job of sort of laying out and explaining some of the practical signs that parents should be looking out for, some of the practical things that parents could be doing, and also some of the practical things that law enforcement is doing to try and combat this. One of the things, I've got, Nancy Guthrie on the brain right now, obviously, and something very interesting. And actually, we're going to talk about Nancy Guthrie a little later on in the show, but something very, very interesting was that the Internet Crimes Against Children FBI unit was helping on the Nancy Guthrie case. And you think, well, why? Nancy Guthrie is neither a child nor is there an internet crime being committed against her. Well, it's because they have such intelligence on how to track down perpetrators online, because these people, I said, sometimes they're being stupid, they're being out there, they're being careless and all of those things, which is great, for law enforcement because they can catch the perverts. But um, what is also interesting is that um, they sometimes are very savvy, right? Sometimes they're very technologically advanced, technologically savvy, and it can be difficult to track them down. So they brought in, of course, this internet crimes unit from the FBI to help sort of trace some of the online activity, Bitcoin and otherwise related to the Nancy Guthrie case. Anyways, we'll talk about Nancy Guthrie in the next after this commercial break. But I just really wanted to thank Cedric for sharing with us that insight that he was able to bring and really contextualize some of the scary numbers that we hear about. And really, this is not to scare parents. This is not to fearmonger or your kids can't have Facebook or whatever. You're the parent. When you feel like it's age appropriate for your child to have social media, with proper supervision and good intentions online, I think that, most kids are going to be just fine. But you just have to be careful. You have to be careful. So, anyways, that was a very interesting interview. Thank you again to Cedric for sharing that with us. We are going to go ahead and take another break. And when we come back, as promised, we're going to talk about Nancy Guthrie. Welcome back to Service Matters. Let's dive into potentially the largest national story right now. A lot's coming out with Jeffrey Epstein and Epstein files this week, DHS funding. There's a lot going on nationally, but undoubtedly one of the largest national stories that everybody's talking about is the missing persons case of Nancy Guthrie. Nancy Guthrie, if you're unfamiliar, is the mother of Today Show host Savannah Guthrie. She went missing 11 days ago. Authorities say she was taken against her will from her home in Tucson in the middle of the night. And yesterday was a very large day of developments in this case. And of course, here on Service Matters, you know, sometimes we talk about crime because that is what these people behind me here are dealing with a lot of the time. And there's a lot of agencies zeroing in on this particular case. So we're going to talk about it. So let me kind of run down with you the latest developments in the past 24 hours, not even 24 hours, in the past 12 hours. There have been a lot of developments. So let's kind of run through them. Let's begin with yesterday morning. Tuesday morning, new video was released from the FBI, and it is doorbell video from Nancy Guthrie's home. And it's during the early morning hours of last Sunday, which is the day that she was reported missing, and it aligns with that timeline of when they believe Nancy was taken from her home. They were able to track that by looking at her location on her pacemaker, which disconnected from the home, meaning it got too far away from her phone, which had like the tethering of the geolocation on it. So it aligns with this timeline. They're not saying that this is, the person that they believe took her, but of course, it is incredibly relevant that a masked, armed, gloved man was seen approaching Nancy's home in those early morning hours. If you haven't seen the doorbell video, I'm going to go ahead and play some for you right now so you can watch this. But in the video, you're going to see latex gloves being worn, obviously, to conceal prints. You're going to see that man wearing a ski mask, presumably, again, to conceal his identity. And what's really interesting is you see him try and cover the camera with his hand, and then he actually walks away to some bushes in the front and pulls out some shrubbery, some flowers or something, and then moves to cover the camera with that. The FBI is asking anyone for information to please come forward. And, just listening to a couple of experts in this case, there's a lot to be gleaned from this doorbell camera video and these photos. So first of all, we have a look at this person's eyes now. We have a look at their facial hair. We have a look at their stature, their height, their weight, what they were wearing, the backpack that he was wearing, the gun. You can see a gun. It's sort of difficult to see in some of the footage, but when it's paused, it's a little bit easier. He's wearing a gun holstered in his front waistband. And there's just a lot of information that can be taken from that. So that was sort of like the big development yesterday until last night when there was another big development. And that was when they actually detained a person. They say they were questioning, and I say they, Pima County Sheriffs, which is sort of like the lead investigating agency in conjunction with the FBI on this case. And they detained a man in Rio Rico, Arizona, which is about an hour south of Tucson, very, very close to the Mexico border. And they said they detained him in connection to the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, and they were questioning him, and he has since been released and since, been exonerated from being involved with this particular situation. But last night, we got some really interesting analysis from the FBI. So I want to go ahead and play that analysis for you right now so you can hear what authorities are thinking when it comes to this new footage and, what they're going to do moving forward.
We've got Tracy Walder, Chris Hinkle, both formerly of the FBI. Tracy, just putting this timeline together because those SWAT team vehicles left within minutes of the video being put out. Is this a situation potentially where investigators had a suspect in mind or a person in mind and released the video to see what that person did?
It could have been a ruse, absolutely. I think there's no question. But I also think that video, if you take it in connection with Savannah Guthrie's video from the night before, really indicated to me that they did need the public's help in terms of finding a suspect. And because this individual was essentially, and rightly so, blasted all over the media throughout the U.S., hopefully someone close to this individual who knows this individual, who recognizes some of these features, came forward, and they could be questioning one of those individuals, or they could be questioning the person on the camera.
Look, and Chris, we got to be very careful in these situations, and we are all in the media, I think, should be at least resident and hesitant, knowing past situations where we've been through, where someone was put forth as a suspect or a person of interest, turned out not to be. I'm thinking about Elizabeth Smart's kidnapping. I'm thinking about the Atlanta Olympic Park bombers. What in these initial hours, what are going to be the questions to this person? As Brian said, they're being brought in for questioning.
Well, they're gonna want to confirm, corroborate, or just get some clarification on the information that led to them actually talking to this person. But I agree with you. People that engage in what I call confirmation bias, when they say this must be the person, so they end up looking at only the information that confirms the bias that they have toward that individual, that is just a detriment to any investigator. You've got to let the facts take you where they go. And we knew we were going to get a lot of activity once this video was put out there. Somebody knows who this person is. Somebody recognizes something, whether it's the gloves, the jacket, the backpack, the size of the shoes. It could be any of that. So it is something that I did expect, and I think we'll see more and more activity. It could be that this person is the suspect. It could also be that it's just a coincidence that this individual had something similar to what we see in the video. But I don't want to get out ahead of this and make a false accusation.
No. Tracy, Brian reported that the FBI's HRT, Hostage Response Rescue Team, was brought in to Tucson. Oftentimes former Tier 1 military operators, Delta Force, SEAL Team 6, certainly people who had been on the SEALs teams, who train day in, day out in hostage rescue. That at least leaves the possibility open that they believe that Nancy Guthrie is still alive.
Absolutely. The HRT is really the best at what they do, in my opinion. I worked with them at the FBI. I also worked with them when I was in Afghanistan with the CIA as well to negotiate individuals and their release. So I think part of it here is that they have to operate, unless they have information that she is in fact deceased, unless they have that confirmation, which we don't, no one has given that information out. They have to operate under the auspices that they may be trying to recover a hostage in a situation like this. So bringing them in my opinion, was absolutely the right thing to do, because you don't know when that information is going to come in, and you don't know when they're going to need to be deployed. So I fully support bringing them in early on.
Former FBI agent Dennis Franks joins us now. You know, this is one of multiple notes that we believe TMZ has gotten in this case, but we still don't have full clarity or proof that any of these notes are legitimate, that actually come from the person who has her.
That's true. This is a really intriguing matter because it involves the kidnapper supposedly sending messages through the media, and then other messages coming, trying to pretend to be the kidnapper. And then this one asking for Bitcoin to reveal the kidnapper. So, I mean, just think about all the different aspects of this investigation that are going on. It's one of those I wish I was back out there working it myself, either on the ground or, as a command post coordinator. This, there may be some legitimacy to this, because there has to be at least two people involved in this, in my opinion. The perpetrator who went to the house and took her could not carry her that far. So there had to be, in my opinion, another person in a vehicle somewhere nearby. And it's likely that whoever is communicating these notes, providing the notes and the ransom demands, the language is well versed. And I think it's likely that there's someone else is doing that, and hopefully that person has Miss Guthrie with him. So it's it's still just a matter of the person that was released. There was some reason that they keyed on him in the car. I don't think it was just random. And under the state laws, they probably can only hold somebody, detain somebody for a certain amount of time. So I'm sure the investigation continues. Maybe they cleared him. I don't know, but this is an intriguing investigation.
Right. So just because he was detained and then released doesn't necessarily mean he was cleared, just they don't have enough to hold him. Although this guy is saying publicly, you got the wrong guy. I was home that night.
And that could be true. It's a matter of piecing. I'd be interested to find if they found anything at the house, the car he was driving. Why did they key on that car? Was it seen in some video somewhere? Was it parked at the Circle K? Is there something that led them to that person in that car, evidently? And it's just a matter of putting everything together, and it's going to continue. And I think that the 24-hour command post and all the personnel from all the agencies, with the release of the video, there's going to be more information coming in and following up on that. So I think it's gotten to it was a slow pace, and I think it's gotten to more of a rapid pace now. Yeah. And I expect to see progress very quickly, actually.
The other thing is, in your experience, in kidnapping cases, when people are abducted, the abductor, are they most likely to reach out to the family or police, or the matter that we're hearing this through news organizations, TMZ, local TV stations? Is that unusual in a case like this, especially this latest one, which TMZ is saying doesn't seem to be from the kidnappers, instead from somebody offering to give up information on the kidnapper? If somebody recognizes something, they know to call police.
Yeah, this is very unusual. I'm not aware of a similar situation as this, except maybe in South America, where third parties are used, to kidnappings. But I would speculate that the reason that the kidnapper is going through these news outlets is because they don't want to communicate with a hostage negotiator. They don't want to have to do that, or with a family who is being coached by a hostage negotiator. That's just my opinion, and maybe that's the reason, because it is unusual, and it does slow things down, because at least with negotiations, it's a back and forth. They can show proof of life, and there's more of a tendency, more of a likelihood that the ransom will be delivered.
Yeah. All right. Well, this video is the best thing we've got right now, that somebody recognizes something, whether it's the clothes, the shoes, the backpack, the mask, the eyes behind that mask of the person who was on Nancy's front door that night. Dennis Franks, thank you for your time. 1-800-CALL-FBI if you have any information in this case. Also, the Pima County Sheriff's Office. We are not aware of any press conference today, but as more information comes out hour by hour, we're monitoring that closely.
All right. So very, very interesting, incredibly intense search, still very much underway. And, it's deflating to a certain degree, I'm sure, for the family, that this person that they detained last night turns out has nothing to do with the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. And hopefully the FBI and Pima County Sheriff's Office has more leads that we're not privy to. And of course, that's one of the biggest elements of this, right, is trying to navigate the public attention that this story is getting and utilizing that public attention, hopefully, for more coverage and exposure and tips about this crime, but also very, very, very heavily balancing that with the fact that this is an active investigation, and any sort of information that's put out there to the public is de facto also being released to whoever captured Nancy Guthrie. So you don't want to compromise the investigation in any way as well. So that's a very, very interesting piece of this that, working in the news media, I think about a lot when it comes to these sort of high profile cases. So another development as of Wednesday morning, TMZ reported that they received another note, not a ransom note this time. They say they received another note claiming to know who kidnapped Nancy, asking for a deposit of 1 Bitcoin into a Bitcoin account, which is the equivalent of about $55,000, $56,000. Bitcoin fluctuates, but that's about the current price, which is also the reward that the FBI is offering for information leading to an arrest in this case. So this person is saying, hey, pay me this in Bitcoin and I will tell you who this person is. So really no sort of official word from law enforcement as far as if that is legitimate or not, but that is what TMZ has been reporting today to several outlets. So a very interesting case, a very, very sad case. We are hoping and praying for a safe return of Nancy Guthrie at this point, 11 days into her disappearance. And we heard, day one of this search that she has several medical issues that she needs medication for. And we don't know if she has that medication. So anyways, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break, and I'll see you on the other side. Welcome back. Thanks so much for joining us for this episode of Service Matters. I hope you guys have a wonderful, safe week. Take care, and I will see you back here next week.